Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to DiabloCast, your Diablo 3 podcast. It's been a little while since the last episode, and we have quite a bit to talk about. Now, I am your host, as always, Dennis Force Duhamel, and with me is Kevin Sixen Carlino and Tyler ScyberDragon Milnes. And how are you guys doing this week?
Not bad.
Doing good.
Awesome. We got a lot to talk about today. We have 2 new Artisans for Diablo 3. We have a Sixen Cube app. We also have some information on Bashiok talking about the level cap. We're going to be discussing crafting in Diablo 3, taking a look at possible Diablo 3 box art, and then we're going to be wrapping things up with this week's poll and a Q&A. So with that stated, let's just go ahead and get things started with our first topic, 2 new Artisans for Diablo 3. Now, before you wet yourself, that's an April Fool's joke. Recently on Diablo Fans, there was an April Fool's joke posted on April 1st, obviously, discussing 2 possible new Artisans. And this was an article posted by yourself, Tyler. So you want to just go into a little bit of detail about this little joke that got people all hot and bothered for all of 30 seconds before they realized it was April 1st?
Yeah, definitely. Holiday articles is something we like to do over on Diablo Fans. With April Fool's coming up, we decided, we have to do something big this time. We kind of collaborated as a team, came up, tossed out a couple of ideas and decided that new Artisans is kind of where we wanted the joke to go. So we came up with 2. The first is the cobbler, whose main job basically is to make shoes for you.
For the soulless.
For the soulless, helping the soulless around Sanctuary. A big part of this also is we added a mechanic where terrain would actually affect your character's movement and actual playstyle. Lava, swamps, ice, stuff like that would actually, hurt you if you walked on it without the right shoes on, or ice you'd slip on and, miss attacks. And then after that, we have the Bard, which is basically kind of a throwback. Blizzard actually did a Bard joke for April Fool's, 2 years ago for WoW, and basically, you'd be playing through the game, playing instruments. So we kind of did a little pun on that one as well. And basically he would teach you how to play songs, and you would play them while, in dungeons and stuff, and lull your monsters to sleep and attack them, or, play some drums to increase your defense. And it was basically done when you activated it, basically a little sort of a, I guess, Guitar Hero dance type thing would pop up on your screen, and you'd have to follow this little string of music notes, and that would play the song for you.
That's too funny. It was definitely an enjoyable article, I'd have to say. Now, there was a bit of discussion about the article, and actually some people mentioning that there were some things about it that they liked in particular that they thought would actually be good in the game, all jokes aside. You mind just going into a little bit of discussion about that? I know that you looked over that quite a bit, Kevin, didn't you?
Yeah, so I was actually going to mention that. I mean, yeah, the article is kind of for the lulz, but I mean, there is some discussion, like you were just saying, around actual terrain. Now, I personally think that these different terrain styles could probably work well within the game. Like Tyler was going over, there's going to be, or at least our article said that there would be different kind of, obviously different terrains, ice and lava and swamp and sand that would have different effects on your character. I think that this would be great. I mean, Blizzard is kind of going for more of a random style thing with their maps, and the just Sanctuary as a whole. So, I mean, with their environment affecting the game, I don't see how this would hurt at all.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a pretty cool idea, and I like the concept of, kind of slipping on ice. It increases your miss % chance, and slowing down in the swamp, and that could actually be a really cool mechanic, especially if there were NPCs or monsters in that situation that you had to stay away from melee range, like monsters that they got up to you, they exploded or something. Having something to slow you down besides like a spell or a snare effect would actually be pretty interesting. Now, was there anything else, any other mention of any other mechanics in the joke post that would actually be pretty good, Tyler? Was there anything else that anyone brought up?
I mean, the music thing, it's kind of, it's definitely a joke. Obviously, we don't want to be walking around playing, flute music while we're fighting monsters, but I definitely think, having possibly some sort of other mechanic to help you, boost your character. It's basically, I guess the mechanic of it would be more like it gave each character auras and stuff like that. So, I mean, that's always a possibility.
Something else that we had also talked about in the article was the run walk mechanic being reintroduced in D3, and that was something in D2 that was ridiculously annoying, but depending on how Blizzard maybe implemented it this time around, that could work. Maybe in addition to run walk, something that would increase our character's speed, like on boots. This was something that we had our cobbler do. Basically, they could enchant your boots similar to World of Warcraft, where you can get an increase on speed. So I think that would be pretty cool, since I'm assuming and I'm hoping that there won't be any mounts or anything in the game, so most of this traveling is going to have to be done on foot.
I think with that mentioned too, I mean, with PvP Arena, hopefully being a lot bigger this time, that would definitely create a huge difference in people wanting to get that extra speed boost to really catch up to people.
Yeah, that's I know I played quite a bit of competitive WoW Arena, and that's a big thing. Everyone always had to get the speed enchant for their boots. It's definitely something that's really important. That little extra edge in PvP is definitely a big thing. I would say as a whole, though, I don't think... I mean, I know it's not going to happen. This was an April Fool's joke that you guys posted up, but I think that the walk mechanic nowadays is more for aesthetic things. I mean, it kind of is the case in WoW. Nobody uses walk for anything except for, like, RP or something really lame like that. Right. But yeah, the continuous run, I think, is just much more enjoyable. Having to deal with the stamina bar, it doesn't... A big driving force in Diablo 3, the things that they've taken out and added to the game, it's always with the focus of, is this fun? Not, is it another challenge per se, but is this something you can actually enjoy even with it being challenging? So I guess with that said, as kind of cool as an idea of it is, I don't know if it's ever going to make it back into gameplay.
Yeah, I really don't think that it should, personally. I mean, this is something that has been discussed pretty lengthy over the last couple of years, but I mean, run walk and stamina and stuff. Stamina at low levels was just a pain in the ass, and then once you hit the high levels, it didn't matter. So basically, I mean, it was nothing more than just a pain.
And that moves us into the actual Blizzard April Fool's joke, which was the Heraldric Cube app. And I know that was available for download. Tyler, did you end up getting that? I know you talked about you wanted it.
Yeah, actually, I downloaded it on my iPhone. I play it constantly while I'm on break at work and stuff like that.
Yeah, I snagged it on my Droid too.
Nice, yeah. I heard too that if you got it early enough and you can, when you're doing this, it's actually going to give you some bonuses in game once D3 comes into beta. So that's pretty awesome. Looking forward to that.
Yeah, I actually got the transmuted the right app to get to the cow level, and so now I can actually play the cow level on my phone, which is pretty fun.
Fantastic. Alrighty. Now, we did recently have some discussion from Bashiok on the Blizzard forums, and this was pertaining specifically to the level cap. Now, he went quite a bit in depth about it. There was actually quite a few bullet points. I believe 6 bullet points to be specific. But essentially what he said, the overall gist of the article or of his response, was that the reason and the purpose behind pulling the level cap from 99 down to 60 has nothing to do with the way the game used to work, but everything to do with orange soda. So, so Kevin, did you read through the article? What do you think about it?
So, I mean, I definitely love me some orange soda because, I mean, it's just orange and delicious. So, basically, hitting 99 in D2 wasn't really anything more than a status symbol. I mean, hitting 99 it didn't mean anything as far as gameplay goes. So in D3, they're kind of looking to do something like they did in D1, where they're going to kind of cap the max level at something logical, and then they're going to have the game scale based on that max level. So from the beginning of normal to you complete it, you should be around level 30, and then once you complete Nightmare, it should be around level 50, and then by the time you actually complete Hell, you should be around level 60, if not already 60. So I mean, it just depends on your playstyle as a whole.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it was specifically what they had mentioned was that, in D2, more or less past like 93, there was no real benefit to having you do significantly better in the game. And one of the big things he was actually pulling home was the feeling that, hey, when I level, my character actually improves, not I do 0.5% more damage now. Great, you know what I mean? They wanted it to feel like an accomplishment. And the same thing was true with, I know that he mentioned the skills as well. He wants your, as you level your skill points, hey, I get another point in this ability. It's actually stronger, not, hey, I get another point in Frost Nova and it barely makes any difference whatsoever. So again, the one of the main focuses of the pulling and the scaling back of the leveling is just that it feels like an accomplishment whenever you level, not just a status symbol. And then he actually went even further to talk about how they realized that people kind of like that status symbol, but they were considering adding things into the game that made it more of a visual status symbol that you've been playing the game for a while, not just a legitimate number attached to your icon.
Aside from just being a status symbol, they also, like you were mentioning, they wanted to make it so that way when you actually level up, you gain something. And in D3, this is going to be a little bit different because of the whole thing with traits. Now, traits are only going to be every other level. They want to basically make it so that way you have an award or like a benefit at kind of a regular level spread, I guess. They want to make it so that way it's special instead of cool. Now I'm another level. It's like happy birthday, happy birthday. Oh great, who cares? I got like another 100 more.
Yeah. No, that's a good point.
I think another thing that we need to mention, especially for people who are just hearing this news for the first time, is that they're not actually cutting out any content by removing these later levels. It's not like where you'd be at 60 in Diablo 2 is where Diablo 3 ends. They're just basically rescaling it down to where you're getting the same content, but the level progression is just going to be a little more arduous. So like you guys said, it's more important when you hit those marks. Mm-hmm. I mean, as Bashiak said, the number is really arbitrary. It doesn't matter whether it was 3 levels, 60 levels, 99, or 2000. All the level really does is kind of mark where you at with more important things such as skills and traits and stuff like that.
Now this also helps them set up for possible future expansions. I mean, in D2, basically the max level didn't go anywhere. So when you were 99 in Classic, I mean, you were at max level. And when you were 99 in the expansion, you were max level. So, I mean, this is why level really didn't mean anything. But as far as D3 goes, now when they release an expansion or two or whatever they plan on doing, now they can just bump up the max level 5-10 levels, kind of like they do with World of Warcraft, to help balance that extra content instead of having the levels overlap with the content.
Yeah, and I mean, I almost understand the other side of the fence to a sense. I mean, I remember, I used to play Asheron's Call way back in the day, and it was one of those games where there were literally almost unattainable levels, and you'd see these people who clearly just play 24 hours a day, which good for them, but it had the sense of power behind it, and I think that's what people want in the Diablo series as well. But as we've kind of hammered home, it's really, like we said, nothing more than a status symbol. It doesn't really provide any actual benefit. And like we mentioned midway through this conversation, they're going to be trying to put things in the game other than the actual level attributed to your character that are status symbols to try to keep that sense. But I mean, I guess I can kind of see where some people are coming from. They're like, oh, I want people to know that I play nonstop every single day. Which, I mean, I'm not insulting anyone who does that, because I did that with WoW, I did that with D2, I've done that with plenty of games, but still, it's just I don't think that needs to be the case, that it has to be the number that's significant of your playtime. It could be other things as well, which is what they're going to be trying to do.
Well, Bashiak actually mentioned that in one of the bullet points. Basically, some people were saying, hey, just let us hit level 99. I mean, sure, we won't have anything to do, but at least it'll still be a status symbol for us as a community. And basically, he was saying that's not something we want to do. We want you to have status symbols, yes, but we don't want a level to be one of those symbols. We'll give you it in different other ways.
Mm. Well, I guess, whether it's for the good or the bad, that's how it is, so we're going to have to deal with it. Either way, that's the case. But yeah, definitely really nice to see a blue post, especially one of this length, because it has been quite some time since the last one. So I guess that pretty much does it all for recent news. All right, and now on into our next topic. Every week or every other week, we're going to be going into some game systems or mechanics in Diablo 3. Now, this week, we're going to be kicking things off with discussion about crafting in the game, how crafting is going to work in Diablo 3, how it differs from Diablo 2, and just a basic overview and discussion about the topic in general. So why don't you go ahead and kick things off for us, Kevin? Let's hear some details about crafting in Diablo 3.
Basically, what Blizzard is calling this is the caravan, and the caravan will encompass 3 different artisans, and it'll also include other NPCs like Deckard Cain and Leia, and maybe whoever else we'll encounter, possibly followers, something like that. But that's kind of just speculation. So as far as crafting goes, we're gonna have the blacksmith, the mystic, and the jeweler, and the caravan itself is kind of Blizzard's way of explaining why these people are following us. Obviously, they're in a caravan traveling with us throughout the sanctuary. So Tyler, why don't you go ahead and tell everybody a little bit more about the 3 different artisans and their functions?
Yeah, sure. First, I guess we'll start with the jeweler. The jeweler is going to be an artisan who basically deals in rings, amulets, and gems for us. His biggest thing is probably going to be gems. We know now that there's 14 levels of gems. Only the first 5 actually drop in game. So you're going to use him basically to craft the higher levels until you reach those max levels with the gems. After that, we have the Mystic, who's going to do all the magical stuff for us. She's going to have scrolls, potions, magical weapons, charms, and even do skill runes for us. We don't know too much about exactly how we're going to get skill runes from her, if it's going to take combining old ones or if she's just going to sell new ones. But that's a key place where we're going to deal with skill runes with that artisan. With skill runes, actually, I just got done talking to Bashiok, and he was saying that they're hoping to show us some more skill runes soon. He thinks, they're really going to be game-changing for us, and he wants to show us exactly how, those are going to change and what else they can offer us through skill runes. And then finally is going to be the blacksmith. He's actually going to make armor for us. He can also socket items, and this is going to be done through salvaging, which is you'll get an item in-game called the Salvage Cube, which you'll use to break down items to get parts that you're going to need for him to make new items and armor for you.
So basically, we're going to be getting these artisans throughout the gameplay. We're going to be completing quests, and once we complete whatever quest, this is how we're going to gain the services of these people. So I believe the very first artisan we're going to encounter is the blacksmith. So we'll complete some quest for this guy, and he's going to offer us his services afterwards. And then shortly after, we're going to encounter the mystic and the jeweler. I'm really not exactly sure the order of those are going to be in, but that's about it as far as how we get them. Now, Tyler was also talking about the salvage cube, and now this is something that's going to be interesting because allowing us to salvage items means that we don't have to return to town to kind of drop stuff, and maybe this is kind of where the lack of a town portal kind of is okay, because no longer are we going to have to worry about filling up our inventory with useless junk. Now, stuff that we really don't need or aren't going to get a lot of gold from, we can salvage it. So now this junk or whatever it is goes into our salvage cube, which we can kind of save for these artisans.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a really cool mechanic, and I'm much favoring this style of system. That's going to be the Salvage Cube. Now, one of the biggest things about it, I think, like you just touched on, was the fact that this is going to be our primary way of actually crafting the gear that the artisans are going to be making for us. Specifically, I know that the blacksmith, we're going to be salvaging down, swords and armor that we don't want. It's going to break down into breakable material. I guess we could make it much akin to enchanting and disenchanting in World of Warcraft. And then we're going to be using those materials to build up other pieces of gear. So besides cutting back on inventory space, actually working as a dual mechanic and allowing us to be able to use those items for making stuff as well, I think that's a really neat way to kind of, switch from how we had the Herodric Cube in Diablo 2, and the Salvage Cube, I think, is much more beneficial and something that I'm going to like playing around with much more as well.
Along with crafting items, the artisans themselves are actually going to be a viable gold sink as well for people, end game. You're actually going to level up the artisans as you play, and it's going to cost you gold to level them up. And I'm assuming that means you're going to need higher level artisans to make higher level items for you. But it's definitely going to be something that you're going to have to obtain late in the game. There's specializations as well with the artisans that you're going to have to delve into, and it's just really going to create something else for you to do while you're playing the game.
Yeah, touching specifically on the specializations part, I know what I had understood, and I don't know who said it specifically. It may have been Jay Wilson, it may not have been, but when we think of specializing, we think, specializing, like that's the thing that I do for example, Blacksmith specializing in two-handed swords, and that's it. But I understand you can actually specialize in all of the things, and this is actually going to further increase the gold sink that Tyler just mentioned, because you can, as your Blacksmith, specialize in two-handed swords and axes and whatever throwing weapons. I don't know if they're going to be in the game, but just as an example, so it's going to be a continuous gold sink that's probably almost never-ending for most people, or at least something that's going to take quite a while before you can actually reach full capacity for any completionist players out there.
Now, as far as specializing goes, I believe, now I don't know how correct this is, but I believe that you can only specialize in one thing at a time. And yeah, you can do them all, but you have to make sure you complete one before you can move on to the other.
I think that's I think that's right. I believe hearing pretty much the same thing. So. Okay,
and now maybe to tie this into PvP a little bit, something else people had been complaining about is that there won't be PvP gear at the end of end game. So maybe this is where Artisans can come in. We can specialize in certain stuff and get better gear than we can find maybe out in the wilderness.
Oh God, I hope so. That'd be fantastic. if they had some semblance of resilience-esque gear, something that kind of helps you specifically in PvP via crafting, I think that would actually be. That's almost a solution to the lack of direct PvP rewards, I would say. And come on, Blizzard, you can do it. I believe in you guys.
Well, not to burst your bubble too much, Dennis, but they have said that there will be no resilience in Diablo. Just throwing that out there.
Piece of crap. Unbelievable. No, I wouldn't even say. I know resilience specifically, and I know that it's not a PvP focused game. But maybe if there was gear that was HP heavy, because that's kind of the same. It fills almost the same niche. It doesn't deal with critical strike issues and stuff like that, but it does in a sense where it makes your character more durable, which durability is all what PvP is about. Max damage, max durability, that's it, So, I don't know. Who knows? I mean, there's really it's all conjecture right now anyways, but here's hoping. So, I mean, that's basically a big overview. Were there any other big things about crafting and Artisans that we haven't touched on that we'd like to mention?
One last thing that I wanted to mention, especially for people who don't know about the system, is that crafting in general, for how they've set it up for Diablo 3, is basically to help you compensate for items that you're not getting as actual drops. So it's not like you're going to be able to craft yourself an entire endgame set that's going to be better than uniques and legendaries that you might find while actually playing.
Well, there goes to hoping for PvP gear.
Yeah. Oh, well, too bad. All right, well then, that's pretty much it. So yeah, we're going to be doing segments just like this in future podcasts. Again, if not next week, then probably the week after. And we're just going to be touching on any of the specific systems in the game, as well as any possible mechanics. And with that said, we're going to be moving straight to the forums right now. And as we did last week, we're perused through the forums to find an interesting topic to touch on. And this week, we're going to be talking about the possible leak of the Diablo 3 box art. And it was a complete joke and a scam, and anyone who believed it's probably an idiot. No, not really, but it was, I don't know, it looked kind of silly. I know you guys both saw it. What about you, Kevin? Did you believe it even for a moment?
No, I think I was the very first post in the original thread, because there were two up on the first page of the forums, and basically what I said is, no, it's not the cover because the game isn't out yet, and because the game isn't out yet, it can't be the cover. I mean, aside from that obvious fact, I mean, the cover it's like Sargeras or like a fire elemental from World of Warcraft. So, I mean, something that Bashak made a joke was, I think he said, spoiler alert, the Burning Legion invades Sanctuary.
I knew there was a twist. I knew they were holding something back from us. And this is actually they're intertwining the two universes, and our new. Our new MMO is going to be Diablo World of Warcraft MMO. So you heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen.
World of DiabloCraft.
All of the screenshots and everything we've seen, it's all been a sham. Titan's a sham. At the end of the year, we're getting a new MMO, and it's World of DiabloCraft. How exciting is that? But yeah, that's, I don't know, it was interesting. And actually, there were quite a few pages of people who believed it, I guess. Until it was debunked by someone, specifically linking the image of Sargeras and saying, you guys are stupid.
Well, that, and I believe the store even went ahead and said, look, guys, this isn't real. It's just kind of our own little art that we did to kind of draw traffic into people wanting to get pre-orders.
Yeah, so it was all a lie. It was a delayed April Fool's joke, I guess.
Yeah.
All right, so now we're going to be moving on into polls, and we do these polls every single week to coincide with the podcast, and you can vote for this week's poll by heading right on over to DiabloFans.com, logging in, and then on the right-hand side of the front page, there will be this week's poll. Now, for the last week's poll results, the question was, how do you want set items to work? And in first place, with 82 votes, we had endgame items only. Second place, with 75 votes, was craftable items. And then in dead last, with only 5 votes, we had no set items. Who were those idiots that voted for no? Obviously, they're going to be set items in Diablo 3. What is wrong with the people? But anyways, this week's poll is going to be the following. How will you use your artisans? Given all of our discussion of artisans in this week's podcast, we figured what better way to segue into this week's poll with artisans. So we have 6 possible choices, and how about you run right over those, Tyler?
Yeah, the first one is basically that, people who are excited about the system and want to level all the artisans up to the next level, all specializations, and really use that system for everything it can offer. Another option is going to be, leveling them up to a high level, not necessarily, going down through each specialization, but, maybe you have your blacksmith and you're a barbarian, so you're definitely going to, specialize in axes. After that is going to be, just one. Maybe, the armor and items that you get in the game actually end up being really good, so you don't need to, sacrifice, any gold or items for that artisan. So you'll focus on maybe, the mystic and really, go for those skill runes. After that is going to be just leveling them as you go. It's nothing that you're going to pay attention to. It's going to be, hey, I have to use this person. Might as well, give them this money and level them up to where I'm at and see how that ends up. Another option is going to be not using them at all. Basically, people are going to say, I don't want to waste my time salvaging items. I'm just going to, play through the game as it was, originally, just getting my loot off the floor and not worrying about the blacksmith and everything like that. And the final option is going to be leeching off your friends' artisans. Let them do all the hard work, and you're basically just going to reap all the benefits for it.
That's too funny, and that's sorry to cut you off, Kevin, but that's too funny because that's actually going to be possible, right? When you go into multiplayer games, you carry your specific caravan, so you could technically get someone salvaged material, give them to one of your friends, have them craft the item, and then drop it for you. That's pretty much a possibility, right?
Essentially, I would sorry, Kevin.
Kevin's getting denied today.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Okay, I was going to say yes, definitely. At BlizzCon, they actually mentioned, or Jay Wilson mentioned this. Something he also said that we weren't going to be able to see the other people's artisans, though. And this was something that I guess they were still thinking about back at BlizzCon 2010. Whether or not they're going to allow us to see the other people's artisans. Basically, this could potentially be another status symbol. Come check out my artisan. He looks like a badass.
All right, that's enough out of you. I knew we cut him off for a reason. So how about you, Tyler? Is there anyone in particular that you would pick? Have you voted already, or?
I know, looking at the forums, everybody, not everybody, but the majority of the people are choosing, maxing them all out. And, I think, ideally is, why not? Might as well get, your blacksmith specialized in swords, daggers, axes, get the mystic, and everything that she can do. But I think at the same time, we have to realize that these are endgame goals and a very viable gold sink. So it's not like everybody's going to be able to, to get that as much as you want to. So I think for myself, I think choosing, one specialization, just really focusing on that was probably the path that I'll choose.
Mm-hmm.
Essentially, if we decide to create more than one character, which I'm sure both of you guys are going to do, I know I'm going to do. Mm-hmm. If you hit every single spec with your top character, yeah, it's going to be a lot of money and time and gold and whatever. But if you actually hit the spec, you can now go ahead and craft items for any one of your characters because of what Dennis was just saying. All you have to do is craft it on your character and drop the items. So get somebody to mule for you. And yes, I guess we're going to have to be muling again, even though... Oh, actually, never mind. You can stick it in your personal or your personal stash. Sorry, you stick it in your stash and just pick it up with a different character. They just made it even easier for me. Wow, that's great.
Yeah, that's right. And it's pretty cool. I think what it comes down to is going to be playstyle. Depending on what type of player you are, completionists are probably going to be wanting to do the max level, maxing everything out at the complete top, specializing in absolutely everything. People who spend most of their playtime maybe just running around, or people who just like to kind of farm different dungeons and stuff like that. Maybe they won't be spending quite as much time on the Artisans because they won't be in town as much. So maybe that people like them are only gonna be doing like 1 to 2. I know personally for me, after I'm done and I'm completed pretty much getting all the gear that I need to be successful and viable in PvP, that's all I'm going to be doing. And with that said, the Artisans, for myself specifically, I'm probably only going to focus on Artisans that are going to help me in PvP, because that's always my focus in any game. It's the competitive aspect. So it's pretty interesting, but that's probably what it's going to come down to.
You also need to think about, you said you're only going to get the stuff that helps you, but you also got to think about, hey, there might always be something better for me out there. So if you can craft stuff that other people want, that's a great way to pick up some trades, Yeah.
And I think as of now, the vote stands as people maxing them all out is the highest. That's sitting at 129. But again, for those of you who just heard about this, you can go ahead and cast your vote over on DiabloFans.com. And that about does it for this week's poll. So now into the final segment, which is going to be the Q&A for this week. And if you have any questions, we will be answering questions every week, and you can ask those on either of our Twitters. That's either going to be twitter.com/forcestrategy or twitter.com/thechatgem. All right, our first question comes from Facebook. It's from Tio, and he asks, I have one question about the looting system. Since I play WoW and items are mostly BOP and BOE, I'm wondering how the loot system works in D3. Is it going to be the same as D2 or more like WoW? Are we going to be able to equip used items? All right, so how about you, Kevin? Do you know much about whether or not there's going to be bind on equip or bind on pickup items in Diablo 3?
I believe that we covered a little bit of this when we were talking about MF. I think maybe it was the second cast, but we'll go back into it since it kind of fits our crafting theme this week. BOP and BOE. Basically, quest items are going to be the only BOP items, and then we have BOE for endgame kind of legendary stuff. That way, they aren't kind of floating around the economy. So it's kind of Blizzard's way of fixing the economy. Now, how this ties into crafting is, will we be able to craft items for our friends or other characters of ours? Possibly those items can be BOP. And actually, I should probably say this, for those of you who don't know, BOP is bind on pickup, and BOE is bind on equip. So for BOP, basically you pick up the item and now nobody else can pick it up. And BOE is, once you equip it, it binds it to your character specifically, or possibly account, depending on how Blizzard goes about it this time. So anyway, we really don't know if crafted items are going to be BOP or BOE. So I mean, that's still all speculation as of right now.
And what Kevin touched on, BOE items will be endgame. It will be something to help, curb so there's not thousands of endgame items floating around. But it has been mentioned that you will most likely be able to transfer those items to your other characters on your same account. So if you have 2 witch doctors and you have, a legendary item for it that's bind on equip, you should be able to equip it on another witch doctor that you have.
Yeah, and from what I understand, on specifically touching on the bind on pickup items, is that going to be the case that it's mostly quest items? I remember hearing something about that somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's not going to be like a bunch of, items that your character's going to, it's not like armor and weapons and stuff like that. It's more like the Salvage Cube and stuff like that. So it's nothing major. It's just going to be like, so you can't have, a character that has a Salvage Cube and you give it to another character who's only level 1.
All right, awesome. And then we're going to move on to our next question. Good question, by the way, T.O. Pretty awesome. Unfortunately, for our next couple questions, I don't think they're that good. But anyways, not bad. Our next question comes from Jan, and Jan asks, is it true Diablo 3 must wait until the next gen Xbox is ready? I have no idea where you heard that, but that is a load of BS as far as I'm concerned. As far as what we know, when we're looking at general timelines and the PC release and the console release or the port or whatever it's going to be, the Diablo 3 based game, whatever it's going to be, that will be coming out sometime after the PC release. There's no reason to think that it's going to be coming out at the same time, or that the game itself is going to be delayed for a next gen Xbox. It's definitely not going to be the case. Right.
Blizzard actually said in their open console exploration kind of announcement that the PC version of the game is not going to be delayed in any way, shape, or form by the console version. And it's not even really a port. It's kind of like them just testing what maybe a Diablo 3-ish game would look like on these consoles. So...
yeah, and I guess this is as good a time as any to touch on it, because I don't know if we've really discussed it too much, but That's specifically what it's going to be like. It's not going to be, from what I understand, if it happens, it's not going to be a direct port of the game. It will just be a Diablo themed in the Diablo universe game. I'm sure it'll be much like Diablo 3, probably running off the same engine and the same general game mechanics. But I don't think it's supposed to be a direct port. Do any of you have any information about that, or have either of you heard about that?
As far as what you're just saying, I'm pretty sure that's correct. I believe that they said that it wasn't going to be like a direct port. They kind of just want it to be a Diablo 3-ish game. So whether it is Diablo 3, maybe it's some kind of spin-off. Something like that. For those of you wondering how the game is going to kind of play out, I got a chance to play Torchlight, the Torchlight port to the Xbox, which for the most part it was just a port of Torchlight 1 to the Xbox 360. Now, I was very impressed with how they went about doing the control system. So maybe this is something that Blizzard was waiting for, just kind of sitting back and waiting to see how this port kind of worked out for Runic Games, because I mean I was very impressed and surprised at how well it played on an Xbox 360 controller.
I might get some heat for this, but am I the only one who would like to play Diablo on the Wii, swinging my Wiimote around and fighting demons that way?
You would want to play Diablo with your Wii. Sick man.
Zing.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, it's actually funny that you mentioned that, because now that PlayStation and the Xbox have kind of their motion control systems in place now, that's going to be an option possibly on all of the systems. But I feel like, I mean, obviously that was a joke, like you weren't being serious, but I feel like a motion-based Diablo game really wouldn't work that well if we're going to take any seriousness to it. Well, I just don't see.
And actually tying that back to the April Fool's joke is that there was a StarCraft
yeah,
done by motion. So, maybe it is something they're thinking about.
They were so Gosu with their super micro and macro.
like the 2-on-1.
Yeah, it was pretty well. He was Korean, so he was dominating, obviously, because Koreans are kings at StarCraft. All right, our next question comes from Facebook as well, and this one's from Alex. And he asks, any ideas if there will be new playable classes in the expansions following the release? And if so, what do you think they will be? I can almost certainly say there will be, and I can almost certainly say I have no effing idea what they will be. I don't know. Personally, hoping, I kind of like a Paladin, not a super broken Hammerdin like we saw in D2, but I like the Paladin class as a whole. I also kind of like Druids, so if either of those saw a return, that'd be pretty awesome. What about you, Tyler? Would you like to see anything in particular in the expansions?
I'm going to get a lot of heat for this too as well, but I definitely am going to say that I do not want the Necromancer to return. I don't know what people's fascination is about this and want, him to come back in the exact same style he was in D2, but that's just not something I want to see. As far as what I do want to see is I'd like to see some sort of shape-shifting class.
I mean, as far as the Necromancer goes, I played a Necromancer and a Paladin. Both were the last characters that I made. I mean, the Necromancer is pretty cool, but I kind of feel like the D2 characters, I mean, this goes for the Paladin and Amazon, whatever, all of them, the Druid, they're kind of already seen in these characters now. Sure, it might not be their actual spells and gameplay, but I mean, the underlying feel of the characters are kind of spread out throughout these D3 characters and classes that we have now. I mean, since Diablo 1, the only class that's really been kind of seen in all three games was the Barbarian. I mean, the Barbarian was added in Hellfire, and then here it was in Diablo 2 and now Diablo 3. So, I mean, the Necromancer is kind of, I kind of want to say part like Demon Hunter, part kind of Witch Doctor kind of thing, and then as far as the Druid goes, I want to say the Druid is kind of partially seen in the Witch Doctor also. Go ahead.
Yeah, and there's actually two things to what either of you guys said that I want to touch on. First of which is the mention of the Shapeshifter class, and actually, I know that Tyler, you said you would like to see the Shapeshifter class come back, and it's kind of funny because they were almost doing that with the Demon Hunter. I know that initially the ideas that they were throwing around in the development of the Demon Hunter were that it would possibly, like, its arm would change into a demonic form, and they even thought about a full-on demon playable class, but they ended up pulling that back because they didn't want the players playing an actual demon. But to see any type of other shapeshifting would be pretty neat. The other thing I wanted to mention too was about the Necromancer. I saw a quote somewhere from Blizzard that the main reason they didn't want to redo the Necromancer or bring it back was because they felt it was perfect in Diablo 2. any of you have opinions about that, especially Tyler, because I know you were wholly against the Necromancer. Did you not feel it was perfect, or was it too perfect, or did you think they're just all full of crap and other things are going on?
No, I mean, I agree with him. I think, I played the Necromancer as well, and I do. There was nothing else that they can really add to him to make him, special for this new game, and I think that's why I don't necessarily want to see him, is just because I don't want to play the same characters that I played in Diablo 2. I've waited, 10 years for this game, and so I want all new characters.
Yeah, and I kind of feel like that's why they said that the Barbarian would be in the game, because I think that they actually mentioned this, maybe it was on the release day, or the announcement day, sorry, was that the Barbarian still had room for kind of expansion. So there were things that they could change to make it feel like a completely different class. So it kind of goes back to what you just said, Tyler. You want to play something completely new, and this is kind of why the Barbarian can be seen in this game also.
I guess one last thing to say about that, the Necromancer and even Paladin returning is that Blizzard did say that all of the heroes from Diablo 2, specifically those characters, you will see them in Diablo 3 in one form or another, whether it's an NPC or possibly even, someone who got corrupted and you actually end up fighting them. We saw that in, Diablo 2 from Diablo 1, all the heroes, we end up fighting them. So we will see them. So that's why I just don't think that the Necromancer is going to fit as a playable class in any expansion coming up.
So I guess that about does it for this week of DiabloCast, your Diablo 3 podcast. Stay tuned next week for some more great topics. Again, we're going to be releasing these every week until there's absolutely nothing for us to talk about, and that's never going to happen. So we will always be around. No, not really. But anyways, guys, take it easy, and that about does it for me. So once again, this has been Dennis Duhamel, and with me we have Kevin Carlino and Tyler Milness.
Bye, guys.
See ya.
And we'll see you guys next time.
Well, why don't you start off with the caravan? Because I feel that's the broadest of this situation.
What are you trying to say? I don't know anything.
No, I'm just trying to get us. I'm just trying to get us an outline for how we want to present all this information.
All right, Kevin. Why don't you say all of their names one at a time, and then we'll hand it off to someone who knows.
There's Blacksmith and Mystic and Jeweler. They do stuff. All right, Tyler, why don't you explain that more?
Well, okay. Wait. You guys know Reggie Bush?
Yeah.
Right. So my cousin is a friend of his. They went to college together, and before he started dating Kim Kardashian, he was out in Arizona here visiting me, and he's like, "No shit, my brother just texted me. He said that Reggie and Kim Kardashian are no, was it? Fuck, it wasn't Reggie, was it?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Shit, I always get him and the other dude mixed up.
Did you get this week's episode of Tween Weekly, or? I'm pretty sure there was an update.